Translation. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Translation with repetition. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? The path of self-realization or mysticism is described in the Bhagavad Gita. The basic principle of self-realization is knowledge that living entity is not this material body, but that he is different from it, and that his happiness is in eternal life, bliss, and knowledge. These are transcendental, beyond both body and mind. Self-realization is sought by the path of knowledge, the practice of the eightfold system, or by Bhakti Yoga. In each of these processes, one has to realize the constitutional position of the living entity, his relationship with God, and the activities whereby he can re-establish the lost link and achieve the highest perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness. Following any of the above mentioned three methods, one is sure to achieve the supreme goal sooner or later. This was asserted by the Lord in the second chapter. Even a little endeavor on the path of transcendental path offers a great hope for deliverance. Out of these three methods, the path of Bhakti Yoga is especially suitable for this age because it is the most direct method of God realization. To be doubly assured, Arjuna is asking Lord Krishna to confirm his former statement. One may sincerely accept the path of self-realization, but the process of cultivation of knowledge and the practice of eightfold yoga system are generally very difficult for this age. Therefore, despite constant endeavor, one may fail for many reasons. First of all, one may not be following the process. To pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war on illusory energy. Consequently, whenever a person tries to escape the clutches of the illusory energy, she tries to defeat the practitioner by various allurements. A conditioned soul is already allured by the modes of material energy, and there is every chance of being allured again, even while performing transcendental disciplines. This is called Yoga Chalita Manasa, deviation from the transcendental path. Arjuna is inquisitive to know the results of deviation from the path of self-realization. Thus ends wonderful transcendental Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today we are seeing a question posed by Arjuna. First, there was a question posed by Arjuna, or rather a comment by Arjuna, placing the challenges in following the process described by Krishna, placing those challenges in front of Krishna and seeking clarification. What can I do? This is not a process that I can follow. And then Krishna provides, first of all, provides confirmation that yes, it is in fact very difficult to follow. And then the Lord provides a brief clarification of how to actually overcome the obstacles in 2 verses, just 2 verses. You will see throughout Bhagavad Gita, there is questions and answers by Krishna. Question by Arjuna, answers by Krishna. And there are varying lengths of these answers. And we saw how the entire 5th chapter and the 6th chapter, until the point that Arjuna asked the question, was actually a continuous string of answers being given by Krishna to the questions asked by Arjuna previously. So it is a fairly elaborate answer that Krishna has given. The entire Sankhya Yoga has been described. And then Arjuna says, but this doesn't look practical to me. It is not something that I think I can follow. It doesn't look very easy to follow. And Krishna says, yes, I agree. It's not easy to follow. And then he gives a brief answer in just 2 verses. And then there is no further discussion on that. Arjuna does not seek further clarification. He does not protest anymore. They just change the topic. Now Arjuna is asking a new question. That, okay, given the fact that the process is extremely difficult to begin with, and then the challenges that are bound to come, the process to overcome the challenge is also difficult. What are the 2 processes that were given by Krishna in overcoming the challenge? What are the 2 processes? 2 things that Krishna said that one must do in order to overcome the challenge, to control the mind. The challenge of controlling the mind. Does anybody remember online? 2 things that Krishna asked Arjuna to do. Anyone remembers online?
By continuous practice.
By what practice, sorry? Continuous practice.
Yeah.
And then there is one. You are saying there is one. And then?
Yeah.
Always thinking of me.
Okay. Anyone else? Brijesh Prabhu? Jagannath Prabhu? No, Chanchalami Mana Krishna is a statement of the problem. That is, Arjuna is saying that. In response, Krishna gives 2 things that a person should do in order to control the mind. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna means my mind is restless. Right? The mind is very restless. Arjuna is saying that you're asking me to control the mind because the entire Sankhya Yoga process is to control the mind. So going to a secluded place, avoiding the stimulus, sensory stimulus. And Arjuna says, I'm sorry, I cannot do this because mind is restless. I cannot control it. It's very difficult, more difficult than controlling the wind. Then Krishna replies, yes, I agree. And then he says, 2 things you can do to control the mind.
Practice and detachment.
Detachment.
Yes, constant practice. So Bhagavata Prabhu said, continuous practice. Abhyasat and
Detachment.
Vairagya, Prabhuji.
Yes, Vairagya. That is the implied meaning of that. But what Krishna says is Abhyasat Vairagya. So it is by constant practice. So if you are finding it difficult, try harder. Basically, Krishna is saying, don't give up. If you are unable to control the mind, yes, it's very difficult, no doubt. It's very difficult to control the mind. It is more difficult than controlling the wind. But try. That is the first thing he says. And second thing he says is by detachment. So if you're very attached to material engagement, material activities, if the mind is always engaged in material activities, then it is going to be very difficult for you to practice self-realization. This is what we saw yesterday. The mind is constantly engaged in material activities. If you're always contemplating on material activities, then it is very difficult to practice self-realization. The path of self-realization becomes extremely difficult. And Prabhupada says in the purport, what is the meaning of Vairagya? Prabhupada explains that Vairagya means detaching the mind from material engagements and attaching the mind on spirit. That is Vairagya. So in fact, if you see, Prabhupada is clarifying that how one can achieve this detachment. Otherwise, it's not even, as per Krishna's explanation of Sankhya Yoga, in the 6th chapter, actually the process of Ashtanga Yoga has been described, or Sankhya Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. In this, the process is primarily an artificial control of one's senses. It is simply detaching. The part of attaching is an advanced concept which Prabhupada has given. It's a very confidential knowledge. The definition of Vairagya, you will not find it anywhere else. If you see somewhere else, what is Vairagya? It will simply say the negation. Negation. Negation means what? Don't do this. It won't say what you should do. Because there is no definition of what you should do, that process of negation is an extremely difficult process. Unless the mind has a positive engagement, it is not possible to have simply desist and simply have a negative of do not do this. Okay, then what do I do? Nothing, just sit quietly. No, that is not going to happen. Mind is restless. Sitting quietly and withdrawing from senses and doing nothing is not going to happen. And that's what Arjuna says. And Krishna says, it can happen. It is possible. It's difficult. It takes time. Practice, constantly practice it. And be detached. This is Krishna's answer. So Arjuna understands that, okay, so Krishna has described one process like that. Undoubtedly, that must be a valid process because Krishna has described it. But it doesn't look like many people will be successful in this process. This particular process of Ashtanga Yoga requiring artificial control of senses is going to be difficult and many people will fail in this. So in today's verse, he is asking a question that, okay, I think if anyone follows this process, because let's remember that this conversation between Krishna and Arjuna is happening for the benefit of mankind. This conversation where it happened, it didn't happen in some private quarters of Arjuna's palace. It didn't happen in a forest where only Arjuna and Krishna were present, or nor did it happen between Krishna and exalted sages who were already present at the time. At the time when this Mahabharata war was going on, there were so many exalted sages who were present, who had already been endeavoring for self-realization. For many, many years, they were doing tapasya and exactly following this process that Krishna is already saying. Krishna could have gone and talked to them about it in isolation, but he didn't say that. He spoke this Bhagavad Gita in the battlefield when Arjuna was about to shoot his first arrow, and then seeing Bhishma, Drona, and everybody else, he was overcome with compassion. He did not know what is the right course of action. So in response to that, Krishna is speaking this process of yoga, of linking and understanding what is right and what is wrong. And as part of that process, process has been described as one of the valid processes of approaching the Lord. So Arjuna understands that and then immediately is posing a question on our behalf, just to guard ourselves so that we know what we are getting into. If somebody is attracted to this process and says, no, Krishna has described, let me try it. So Arjuna is saying, okay, I know that some of the people will try. And as the age of Kali progresses, this will become progressively difficult. Even at that time, it was difficult for Arjuna. So where is the question of for anybody else it being easy? And so he's asking a question today. Let us see what the question is once again. Arjuna Uvacha Ayati Shraddhayopeto Yoga Chalita Manasaha Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Gatim Krishna Gachati. It is one of the rare verses in Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna is referring to Krishna as Krishna. So he's referring to Krishna as Krishna. You'll see that Arjuna is referring to Krishna by many other names. Govinda, Rishikesha, Achyuta. Like this, many other names he calls. And then there is, of course, one more place where he says, after realizing the position of Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead, he begs his forgiveness for being so casual with him and sitting on the bed sometimes, playing with him because they are cousins and their friendly relationship. So sometimes Arjuna will speak to him in a joking way. And he says, many times I've called you, oh Govinda, oh Krishna, like that, in a very casual way. Please forgive me for my offenses. I did not know your position. So like this, there are one or two places in Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna refers to Krishna as Krishna. And this is one of those places. It is very sweet when he calls him like that. So he's asking this question, Ayatihi, unsuccessful transcendentalist, Shraddhaya, with faith. So when a transcendentalist who's attempting to follow the Sankhya Yoga process, with faith, see, without faith is not even asking. But if somebody is convinced that yes, this process will give me success, there is no doubt. Why? Because Krishna has given this process. And with that strong faith, if somebody is putting his complete energy and trying to follow this process of Ashtanga Yoga, mystic yoga process, but he becomes unsuccessful, Ayatihi. Why he becomes unsuccessful? Yoga Chalita Manasaha. Why? Because he becomes deviated from the mystic link, Yogat. So this process of yoga is linking ourselves with the Supreme. And this process is a step-by-step process that has been described by Krishna. And in this process, when you begin the journey, actually that journey is already under linkage. Because one cannot practice this process, even this process of mystic yoga, unless one is supervised by a spiritual master who's expert in that. So the moment a person starts the process, actually is already linked with the Supreme. He's already linked through the spiritual master. This is just like when you enter a school, when you're getting admitted to the first grade, you're already assured of success, right? Because you're going to graduate. When you enroll into a school and you've taken the sankalpa in your mind that yes, I am going to go through, of course, child is very small, does not know, but the parents know that this child will be put through all the grades, and they have no doubt that this process will complete the education and there will be a degree that will be obtained and the person will be certified by the institution and will be recognized by everybody else. Success will be obtained. So even though a person is just in first grade, everybody treats that person as, yes, he is on the right path. So he's already considered to have achieved the results in a manner of speaking. But of course, until he completes the 12th standard, anything can happen. A lot of students drop out also. And yet, Prabhupada gives another example that I've heard, which is if a person has boarded a train, which is going to a particular destination, then reaching the destination is assured, as long as you don't get out. Sometimes people get out to fill water or something, or buy, nowadays nobody fills water in a station, you buy a bottle of water. So you buy a bottle of water and then you get distracted by something. There is a magazine stand and you say, oh, in this station always train waits for a long time. Let me look at the magazine stand. And then you start looking at the magazines and you turn around, train is gone, you lost. But if a person at the time of boarding the train undoubtedly knew that this train will take me to Kanpur or Lucknow or wherever he wanted to go. So in spite of having the faith, but because of getting deviated from the process of linkage, which is to basically stay in the train or stay in the school, that is called Chalita Manasaha, deviation. A person whose mentality is that he has been deviated. Due to that, what happens? He fails in achieving the highest perfection in mysticism. Yoga Samsiddhim. Yoga Samsiddhim means highest perfection. What is possible? That Samadhi, constantly engaged in the loving devotional service of Paramatma in the heart, constantly fixed in the super soul. That is the highest perfection in mysticism. That perfection, because of this deviation, a person has failed to achieve. So in that case, Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. Krishna, what is the destination of such a person? Krishna, Gatim Kam Gacchati, you can say. So what is the destination of such a person? Will that now that person has got down in one intermediate railway station and he wanted to buy some magazine, drink water, he forgot about the train. Now what happens to him? He's stuck in that station, or some other train will come and take him. They'll say, no, you don't have a ticket for this train. Your ticket was for the previous train. And now he has whatever money he had already spent on the previous train ticket. So what happens to him? He's stuck there. Nor does he have money to take a bus or something and go home. Nor does any other train admit him. So he's just stuck in that railway station now. What happens to him? So that is the question that he's asking. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? So we have seen that the two methods that Krishna has given, Abhyasena and Vairagyena, are very difficult, and this is what Arjuna is asking about. There was a very interesting verse that was quoted 2 classes back about direct experience of the Lord. What is Vairagya? Vairagya we saw yesterday also, we revised it, and just now we spoke. Vairagya means that detaching the mind from material engagements and attaching the mind on spirit. There is one more thing that was quoted in the purport 2 verses back, which is the experience of Pareshanubhavo. That is direct experience of the Supreme Lord. And that is also being mentioned in today's purport. Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Viraktir Anyatra Chaisha Trika Eka Kalaha Prapadyamanasya Yathashnata Shus Tushti Pushtik Shud Apayo Anughasham. That is, when a person is following the process of devotional service, not the process of Ashtanga Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Mystic Yoga process, but a person is following the process of devotional service, then 3 things happen. What happens? Bhakti, Pareshanubhavo, Virakti. 3 things that happen. That is, devotional service, devotion itself develops, and direct experience of the Supreme Lord develops, and detachment from other things develops. 3 things happen simultaneously for a person. So if a person is endeavoring in the path of devotional service, then 3 things happen. What are these 3 things? Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. And in what way does this happen? This happens to the extent in which you are having each morsel of devotional service. So let us say we have started, we have come to the, we have entered the school, first standard. So in the first standard, there is a mathematics teacher who comes and teaches 1 + 1 = 2. So to the extent that we have studied that and we are paying attention in that class, we have understood 1 + 1 = 2. And that 1 + 1 = 2 is never wrong subsequently. It is not that it's first standard mathematics. In second standard, they'll say 1 + 1 = 3. That is not true. That is not the case. Correct? 1 + 1 remains 2 in every level of mathematics. So just as one realizes a certain granular aspect of mathematics in the first grade, to the extent to which you're paying attention to that math teacher, similarly, the extent to which we engage in devotional service with sincere faith, to that extent, we have direct experience of the Supreme Lord. And the example that is given here is relief from hunger comes simultaneously, increasingly with each bite, with each morsel for a person who's engaged in eating. So you're hungry, you take 1 bite. To that extent, hunger goes away. It is not that first 100 bites you are taking, nothing happens, and suddenly in the 100th bite, immediately completely you're satisfied. It is not like that. Correct? It is a gradual process. So similarly in devotion also, this is a gradual process. But if you see the material activities in our material world, it is not like this. In the material world, activities are not like this. Unless one achieves the, let us say you have understood 1 + 1 = 2. But what value does that 1 + 1 = 2 have in the outside world? Yes, you have understood, no doubt, 1 + 1 is 2 in the actual material world. You've gone to the first grade and you dropped out after that. Or your first grade also, you understood 1 + 1 = 2, but you didn't take the exam. Can you go to second grade? You cannot go to second grade. correct? Because you didn't clear the exam. So you might have studied all the classes, you might have understood everything, but you didn't take the exam, you're considered a failure. You cannot go forward, correct? So there is if you don't achieve your destination, there is actually no success in the material world. Another example that Prabhupada gives is, let us say somebody enrolls in a medical college. And after your 12th standard, you're full of hope. Yes, I'm going to become a doctor. And then you get enrolled. And it takes 5 years to complete MBBS in India. Here, I think it's a 4-year Bachelor of Science, and then you have to do various other graduate degrees, graduate programs, and other doctoral programs, etc., to become a practicing medical doctor. So let us say you're studying for medicine, and then in the 3rd year you drop out. So much you have studied. Actually, the 3rd year person will know a lot of things, right? Or even the 4th year, before the final graduation, before you complete your undergraduate degree, you say, okay, enough. I have after all studied, and I've got also GPA is there. In every semester I've got GPA. It is proof that I have understood. But I don't want to, in the final exams, I don't want to participate, because I have something else going on. Whatever I had to learn, I have learned. Is there any value in that? There is no value. So this, because of our engrossment in the material world, and because of our experience in the material world, our expectation is that if I take to a process of self-realization, if I embark upon the path of self-realization, especially a path that is so difficult as this mystic yoga process, if I fail in between, am I not completely lost? Therefore, is it even worth undertaking this? This doubt will come. Why this doubt comes? Because to begin with, our faith is shaky. We don't have the faith that if the spiritual master is given a path, that it will bear success. That faith we are lacking. And this is well known to Arjuna and to Krishna, who's prompting Arjuna within his heart to ask these questions. Because Arjuna, being a pure devotee, his senses are fully controlled by Krishna. And it is not that these are Arjuna's doubts, but Arjuna is prompting, as Paramatma in Arjuna's heart, is prompting him to ask these questions for the clarification of everybody. Because all of us are in this material world, and our expectations, our hopes, and our determinations, they are all shaped by our material experiences. And therefore, this question will no doubt come in the minds of many people. And even today, we can see that this question comes. When we speak to individuals who are not in Krishna consciousness, and we are encouraging them to take up this process, they first of all ask, what are you doing? What do you do? And then they see us. Oh, we are chanting 16 rounds. We don't eat onion garlic. We don't go to all the places of entertainment that ordinarily people do. We don't engage in partying. We don't talk nonsense things. We are always serious. We speak about things which are of consequence. And we are almost always as if we are measuring our words. We don't casually speak things. And this state of a serious person with a purpose in life appears to be very, very difficult for an ordinary person, who are generally, by and large, they are very casual. If you speak to a normal person who's not in Krishna consciousness, if 5 minutes you talk to that person about something serious, he cannot tolerate. It becomes too difficult. Immediately he'll crack some joke, and he'll call upon a friend and say, "Arey yaar, ye to this person is he's gone somewhere. He's gone deep. He's lost. Please rescue me. I'm not able to tolerate this." He will say like this. Why this obstacle? Why this mental block in even hearing for 5 minutes what you have to say about higher principles of life? Birth, death, old age, and disease. Everybody is suffering from this. And if you ask the question, you're suffering this birth. Everybody is suffering from disease. Everybody is suffering from death. Going to die one day. Isn't that an important problem to talk about? And the answer you get is no. There is no point in talking about that. It is bound to happen. There is nothing we can do about it. And then you say, no, there is something you can do. And then the person will say, really? Because this path, whatever you're talking about, in fact, he won't even say this, but this is what is happening in the mind. It is an impossible path. I have to sacrifice all the joys in my life, my faith, is in my joys. My faith is that these activities give me joy. That's where my faith is. And you are telling me, no, take away that faith. Put your faith in something else. Put your faith in the words of some person who's no longer even alive. You're talking about a person, Prabhupada. Where is he? I don't see him. And you're saying that because he has, and 5,000 years ago, somebody has written these scriptures. They have no idea what I'm dealing with here. Somebody has written the scriptures and they've gone. We don't even know, first of all, who's written the scriptures. Like this, their mind is thinking. Complete lack of faith in the words of a Vaishnava or the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. That does not exist at all. There's no such faith. And on top of this, a platform of complete absence of faith. Now that person is being given a path that yes, there is a way in which you can overcome the problems of life, birth, death, old age, and disease. And then he says, okay, even if I assume for a minute that there is instructions of Prabhupada, instructions of Krishna, they have got value, there is truth. But what kind of a path are you giving me? Look at you. You seem to have no joy in your life. You seem to be always chanting Hare Krishna, you're going to temple, and you're just always absorbed in activities that seem to have no element of enjoyment. So this is the position of an individual. And for people in this platform who are unable to take even the first step, who are unable to even take the first step because of this huge mental block, on behalf of this fallen condition people, Arjuna is asking this question. But what if somebody takes a few steps and falters? So there is an assurance actually being given by Krishna in the second chapter that is being referred to in this purport today. And let us just take a look at that assurance that Krishna gives. And Arjuna wants to reconfirm that. He wants to hear Krishna say that again. Now, here also there is a quality of hearing that we should appreciate. Because when we're reading Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, the extent of relishing that we would have is really dependent upon how we are able to appreciate the nuances of what is happening in the scripture. And here Prabhupada is pointing out, because our eyes are unable to see this, Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport that actually this question is a further clarification of what has been already said in second chapter. And just imagine what is the level of hearing that he's remembering. Now we are in sixth chapter. He's remembering what has been spoken in second chapter. He has understood what has been said after that. And now he's asking this intelligent question to further clarify, because he sees that this is very difficult, but he has heard an assurance before. He wants Krishna to elaborate that again. So let us see what is this verse. This is a verse, 40th verse in the second chapter. Neha bhikrama nashosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Na iha abhikrama nasha asti. Na iha, that there is not. Iha is in this world. So in this world, there isn't. Na iha, in this world. Abhikrama nasha asti. In this endeavor. Abhikrama means krama. Krama is to do some urukrama, we have heard, right? One of the names of the Lord is Urukrama. So what is the meaning of Urukrama? The meaning, the translation of Urukrama. Vamanadeva is that is a name given to Vamanadeva. That is another holy name. What is the meaning of that word? Extraordinary things. The Lord who can perform extraordinary things. So Urukrama, one can perform extraordinary things. Similarly here, Abhikrama. Neha, na iha abhikrama. Abhikrama is endeavoring. So in this world, there is no abhikrama. In this abhikrama, there is no loss. Nashaha asti. So in this endeavor, what endeavor we will see? But Krishna is saying that in this endeavor, there is no loss. Nasha asti. Pratyavayo na vidyate. Pratyavayaha means diminution or reduction. Similar, just as you say nashaha, loss, or diminution, even reduction. So it is not that, let us say that you performed an activity. Let us say you build a castle made of sand in the beach. What will happen? There is a great endeavor in that, right? You have seen, sometimes you go to the beach And there'll be people who have built beautiful, wonderful, big castles. On the other side, there'll be a child who will be building a small thing with small cups. He'll be building some castle. And whether you're building a big castle or you're building a small castle on the sand in the beach, what happens? Next wave comes, it is gone. Complete loss. The complete castle is lost. Or if you build something else, anything else in this material world, over time, the value is lost. You just earn some money, put it in the bank. Money in the bank to safe. Yes or no? No. Money in the bank is not safe. Why? Because there is inflation. When there is inflation, gradually the money value goes on decreasing. And the interest that you get in the bank will never be equal to the inflation. So because of just, if you earn some money, let's say I earn tomorrow $10,000 after working very hard, and somehow with great difficulty, after sacrificing a lot of possessions, a lot of material joys, I don't go here, I don't go to the party, I don't buy expensive things, and somehow I'm saving $10,000. That money, how long it will last? If you do nothing, that money goes on depleting. That is called diminution. So anything you acquire in this material world, any endeavor you do, it will face either a complete loss, a total loss, or it will face a diminution. And after some time, when the life is over, then whatever money is left over in the bank, even though at that time it may appear to be $20,000, but actually at that point that money anyway would not be worth $20,000 because of inflation. It lost its value. But at the time of death, it is completely lost. Nashaha. This happens. But there is a process in which there is no loss or diminution. There is no erosion of the value due to any inflation or any other such phenomena. Nor do you ever lose it. What kind of a process is this? Krishna says, even if you do little bit, swalpam apyasya dharmasya, in this activity, on this path or occupation, if you just take a few steps, swalpam apyasya dharmasya, trayate mahato bhayat, trayate, releases from greatest danger, mahato bhayat, greatest danger it can release you. So it's such a hope-giving verse for a person who's not able to take even the first step, because he thinks that I have no faith in the words of spiritual master Vaishnava. I have no faith in the words of Krishna. I have no faith in the words of saintly persons. And in any case, even if there's an iota of faith, if I take one step forward, 2 steps forward, 10 steps forward, I will not be able to to persist with the path, because I know my position. I'm going to fail. So in those 10 steps, I could have advanced so much materially. I could have put more night outs in my office work. My boss would have appreciated me so much. But because I'm coming on Saturday evening, every Saturday evening you disappear from our friend circle. And you say, I'm going to temple to hear Bhagavad Gita. Every Sunday evening you disappear from our friend circle. You say, I'm going to Bhagavad Gita class. Sunday mornings you're gone. So in these hours, let us say 3 hours on Saturday evening, 3 hours on Sunday evening, 3 hours on Sunday morning, 4 hours. How many hours happened? 10 hours happened here itself. And then every day you're spending 2 hours chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That is 7 times 2. How much is that? 14 hours. 14 plus 10, 24 hours in a week. 24 hours in a week, I can take a second job. If I spend 24 hours extra in my job, how much my job boss will appreciate me? Or I'll get double promotion, triple promotion. If I'm a scientist, I can publish so many papers in that. I'll become such a stalwart in my scientific community. And even if I spend those 24 hours a week, are you guaranteeing any success in that? No, because I'm sure that I will not be able to sustain it beyond 1 week. So for that, Krishna is saying, don't worry. Even if you spend 1 hour in this process, actually you'll be saved from greatest danger. The purpose of this is to not say that one should become satisfied with 1 hour. That is not the purpose of this. The purpose is for us to understand that a person who is hesitating to take even the first step, for him, there is a safety net. So what is this process? And that process is described in the previous verse. Krishna says, thus far I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga, whereby one works without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act with such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. Buddhi yukto yaya partha karma bandhanam prahasyasi. So this buddhi yukto, that is buddhi yoga, it is also, Prabhupada says, it's also same as bhakti yoga. Buddhi yoga and bhakti yoga, they are interchangeably used. So this process of devotional service is such that if one takes even a little bit of process, and if you see the Sankhya Yoga, here in second chapter, the Sankhya Yoga refers to understanding the difference between body and spirit. And in today's purport also, Prabhupada is clarifying that. You see how Prabhupada is linking, building the stage for understanding how the relevance of this verse is coming to today's verse. Because somebody may say, but that is different Sankhya Yoga. That Sankhya Yoga in second chapter is talking about difference between body and soul. This Sankhya Yoga is talking about Ashtanga Yoga. Aren't they different? So Prabhupada is clarifying. Before he even says, refers to this verse 240, he's actually clarifying that the basis of self-realization, the fundamental, the most basic aspect of self-realization is actually to understand that we are not the body. That's the first step. So even though this process is sixth chapter of the Sankhya Yoga is talking about the Ashtanga Yoga process, but the basis of that is to understand that I am not the body, and therefore to withdraw oneself from the activities relating to the body and senses. Because if you don't understand that I'm the body, then you'll be constantly engaged in the activities relating to the body. And the first step here is to go to the forest and withdraw from the senses. That can only happen if you try to understand, if you try to meditate upon your position as a spiritual personality, as a spiritual being. So therefore, the basis of what has been described in second chapter by Krishna in Dehino, starting from Dehino Asmin Yatha Dehe, as Prabhu said the other day, the first verse where Krishna is talking about the difference between body and soul is Dehino Asmin Yatha Dehe Kaumaram Yavanam Jara Tatha Dehantara Prapti Dhirastatranam Muhyati. So Deha and Dehi difference is starting from that verse and continuing until this point where now Krishna is talking about Buddhi Yoga, and he's saying, I'll now describe to you something which you, even if you take a little bit of steps, you will benefit greatly. And interestingly, in this verse, Prabhupada, in this verse means in the 2.40, Neha Bikramana Sosti verse, Prabhupada is quoting one verse from Bhagavatam, in which there is a corroboration of this aspect, that even a little bit of advancement a person does is saved from the greatest danger. And this verse we have already studied in Srimad Bhagavatam classes in the morning, in the conversations between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. And that verse is in the first canto, 5th chapter, the conversation between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva, 17th verse. Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam hare bhajanna pakko atapate tato yadi yatra kvava bhadrama bhoddamushyakim kovartha apto vachatam swadharmataha. Tyaktva sadharmam. Somebody gives up his self-gratificatory materialistic pursuits, whatever he was doing before. It may be serving the family, serving the nation, serving the society, serving the world, humanity, whatever it may be. Somebody was doing something and he gave up. Extreme case. This is an extreme example that is being given by Narada Muni to Vyasadeva. Now, this is not a conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. This is a conversation between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva and exalted personalities. So it is like a conference of teachers where there is a exalted person who is talking to other teachers, train the trainers. It's a different level of conversation. So in that conversation, train the trainer conversation, Narada Muni, who's a exalted spiritual master of Vyasadeva, he is telling Vyasadeva that take the extreme example of somebody who has completely forsaken his material duties. So such a person definitely should suffer because he has ignored his material responsibilities. Correct? Somebody is supposed to take care of his society, let's say tax. We have to earn money, pay tax. And he has to do some work in the society to help somebody, because any person who's born, he has got 6 kind of debts. What are the 6 debts? Deha patya kalatradishu atmashay. No, sorry. Deva rishi bhuta apta nrinam pitrunam. Deva rishi bhuta apta nrinam pitrunam. Kin karonayam rishi rini icha rajan. So there are 6 kind of debts. Deva, rishi, bhuta, apta. Nrinam, pitrunam. So these are the 6 kind of debts that a person has. And from the time you're born, you have to try to repay these debts. And if you quit your body without having made sufficient efforts to repay this debt, according to the Shastra, you remain indebted. That debt you have to pay at some point. You cannot, even that debt will never be forgiven. You have to, the system will make sure that you repay the debt. If you don't give it voluntarily, forcefully you have to repay the debt. But what if someone gives up the debt and it doesn't fulfill? Tyaktva sadharmam charanam bhujam harer. He takes shelter of lotus feet of the Lord, Hari. Then what happens? Extreme case. What happens? Bhajan napakko athapate yatovadi. But because, in spite of taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, because of apakko, napakko, because of lack of maturity in rendering devotional service, because of lack of maturity, he is unable to achieve the perfection of mysticism, as it's there in today's verse. Not able to achieve perfection of mysticism. Then what will happen? Tato yadi, if that happens, what happens? On the other hand, you have yatra kwa va badram abhudamushyakim. That is, ko vartha apto abhajatam swadharmataha. If somebody does not take up, abhajatam, does not take up to the devotional service of the Lord. Take the other extreme example. Sometimes in science also we have this, right? Black body, white body. 2 extreme examples. Black body radiation, white body. What is the difference? Black body absorbs everything, white body reflects everything. And if you ask somebody, where is the example of black body? No, it's a theoretical concept. It's an extreme example I'm taking to illustrate a concept. But of course, here that happens. There are many individuals who do not take up to Apachatam at all. I mean, they don't take up to Krishna consciousness at all. And there are also examples of persons who have actually given up the Swadharma and taken to Krishna consciousness. There are actual examples available in both categories. So Narad Muni is saying that if that such person is there who has perfectly executed all his material duties, 6 debts fully repaid, Deva, Rishi, Bhuta, Apta, Nrinam, Pitranam, everything fully satisfied, all the debts full, nobody can find a fault in that. But for such a person, is there any value in that? Ko Vartha, is there any value in such a person's life? There is actually no value. If someone gives up self-gratificatory pursuits and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there in his part? There is no loss. This is what Narad Muni is saying. And what if one gains? What can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as Christian says, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffers the loss of his eternal soul? This is a Christian saying in the Bible. This is there. What profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffers the loss of his eternal soul? So no matter how perfect you are in your discharging of your duties, when your material body ends, you have to take another birth. Again, you're heaped with 6 more debts. You spend your entire life trying to repay those debts. And what happens at the end of life? Another body. Another body is given. Again, 6 more debts. Is there any end to this? There is no end. There is no way to escape. There is no way to get out. There is no point in this. That's what the Bhagavatam verse is saying. That's what Narad Muni is saying. So therefore, we should look at, this is actually should be the hopeless activity. If somebody is intelligent, they should understand that this path of satisfying my debts to the society, my debts to my parents, debts to the devatas who are giving all these facilities for enjoyment, that path is actually the hopeless path. But we are not seeing like that. We are putting all our faith energy in that path of enjoyment, where we are saying that because I'm able to satisfy all my debts, or rather, I should put all my efforts to spend my entire life in order to satisfy these debts. And therein lies my enjoyment, because everybody will praise me, everybody will appreciate, what a great person he is, such a great citizen he is. And that will give me great joy. We put all our faith in that. So for a person who's thinking like that and is unable to take even the first step in devotional service, Arjuna is asking the question today. And there are several examples also that has been described in Srimad Bhagavatam for individuals who have taken to devotional service, and they have faltered and they have not achieved success due to the na pakko, because of not continues in today's world also. There is a verse, there's a word. What is that verse in today's verse? Yoga chalati manasa. Yoga chalita manasa. Because of deviation from the mystic link, yoga chalita manasa, because of that. So like this, there have been instances in the history. One example is the example of Bharat Maharaj. You've heard that many times, that he renounced his kingdom and took up very seriously to the path of self-realization. And but somehow or the other, he got attached to a deer. So he did not achieve perfection. He failed in achieving aprapya yoga samsiddhim. He was not able to achieve perfection in that life. So what happened to him? It is not that he had to start again from beginning. In the next life, when he became a deer, actually he was able to remember, because he was thinking about the deer at the time of death. He had got the body of a deer. But even in spite of being the body of the deer, by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, he was able to remember his past activities, and he continued to associate with saintly minded people and hear Krishna Katha. And then at the end of that life, he again got a human body as Jada Bharata, and he still remembered his past lives, and therefore he did not associate, he did not show off himself as a learned man, and he understood that any amount of erudition or scholarship that he shows immediately will potentially lead him to attachment, and he has understood the failed attempts in the past, and he's starting from that position, and then he achieves perfection in the third attempt. So in each case, he is not starting from beginning. It is not that as a deer he has to again start tapasya from the beginning. It is not like that. He's starting from where he left off. So that is one example that is given. Another example that is given is the story of Ajamila, who was a very nice Brahmana, and he was undertaking very nice devotional service, devotional activities, serving the Supreme Lord very well. But one day, just due to a slight flicker of his mind, he saw the amorous activities of a prostitute on the way back home in the forest, and he got attracted to that prostitute, and then his downfall began. He evicted his parents, his wife, his children, evicted all of them from his home, and he started living with this prostitute. And he spent his entire life with this prostitute, having several children. He started undertaking all kinds of abominable activities, and truly became a detestable person. From the position of a noble Brahmana, he became a detestable person with all kinds of abominable activities. A big fall down. Really a big contrast of what he was before and what he became later. So surely such a person, somebody may look from outside and say, see, what's the use of him undertaking all those pious activities and being so austere? Ultimately, he became like me, fallen person. So let me not even take that path. I'll remain fallen from beginning only. Somebody may think like that. But then what happens to Ajamila? By the arrangement of the Lord, he is inspired to name his son, youngest son, to whom a father is naturally very affectionate. So both the first son and the youngest son, the parents are always very affectionate. The eldest son, normally father has a lot of hopes that he will make my dynasty, he'll grow my dynasty, and he'll give a lot of fame to me and my family. And the youngest son is simply, there is always affection in any family, you'll see. So naturally, he was attached to his youngest son. But by the divine arrangement, he was inspired to name his youngest son as Narayana. And he would keep calling him, Narayana, come here. Narayana, give me some water. Narayana, take this clothes, put it in washing machine. Narayana, take it from washing machine, put it in dryer. Narayana, take it and fold my clothes. Like this, he would keep telling Narayana all these things. And by constantly chanting the name Narayana, 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 unknown to him, a purification was happening. And he was getting purified from all his sinful reactions to his activities. And at the time of death, he calls out helplessly to his son, Narayana, come here. There are some very scary looking people coming here to take me away. I don't know what is going on. Of course, he didn't say all those things, but this is consciousness. He's scared by the Yamadutas who have come there. And he's calling out to his younger son in great anticipation that he will save him, and calls out to Narayana. And just that helpless calling to Narayana, although he is calling his son, but because he called out the name of Narayana, Immediately Vishnudutas appear there. And then there is a debate between the Vishnudutas and the Yamadutas, in which the Yamadutas are defeated and Vishnudutas take him away to the Vaikuntha Loka. So he is able to achieve his perfection in the same life. In the very same life, not even like Bharat Maharaj, who had to take 3 lives. Just see the perfection, the power of the chanting of the holy names, as compared to Bharat Maharaj, who was engaged in the process of self-realization through mystic yoga. So the power of chanting of the holy names is so much more powerful that in the same life he got self-realization. There is one, he got the ultimate yoga samsiddhim of going back home, back to God. There is another wonderful example, story given in Bhagavatam, the story of Chitraketu. So Chitraketu is a very instructive story, a very intriguing story, very nuanced story, and one must hear the story with a proper attention and understanding. I would suggest you read the story also. It's in 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. 15, 16, 17, 3 chapters are there. A very, very nice story. It is intriguing because here is an example of a king who was very attached to his child. First he was not getting a son. He was not able to have an offspring. And then as he was contemplating on that, there was one great sage by the name Angira Rishi who came there, and he gave him a process of how to obtain a son. And later, by the following of the process, he obtained a son. But Angira Rishi cautioned him that you're asking for this, what you're asking for, this benediction, will be both the cause of your joy and the cause of your lamentation. He cautions him, but the king doesn't pay attention to that aspect. He simply follows the process, gets a child. But very soon what happens? That king has several queens, and all the other queens, they become jealous of that specific queen who gave birth to this child. Kritadyuti, I think that is the name of the queen. So all the other queens become very jealous, and the king becomes increasingly affectionate to the son and to the wife who gave birth to that son. And seeing this behavior of the king, they become jealous and they conspire to poison the child. And overcome by their envy, they carry out that plan and they poison the child. The child dies. And the king is lost in lamentation. The queen is also lost in lamentation. And as soon as they realize, they see the position of the king, even the other queens, they realize their mistake. But alas, it is too late. They've already committed that great sin of killing a child. And at that time, in his deeply regrettable state, where he is lamenting for the loss and he's unable to regain composure, at that time, 2 great sages come there, and they instruct him on the process of self-realization. And they say, this person that you're so attached to, where was this person before he was born? You're calling him your son. But before he was born, was he your son? And now he is dead. Is he your son? Where is he? Where was he before? Where is he now? Neither of them you know. Only for the brief period when he was your child, you thought of him as a son. And in that brief period, he got so attached to him. So like this, they instruct him in the science of self-realization. And Angira Rishi tells him something very, very interesting. He says, actually, when I met you the first time, I would have given you all this detailed knowledge, but I did not, because I saw that you are materially very engrossed. You were not in a state of mind to listen to me. So I gave you a process which was a result of exactly what you wanted. You wanted joy. But in this material world, when you ask for joy, that Amazon package of joy comes bundled with distress. The box is labeled joy, but you open that box, you get distress. So here is your bundle of joy, your child that you wanted for so many years. You got the child, and the same child is now the cause of your lamentation. And when you read this verse where he is talking about this, it resonates with our state. Because when we get the spiritual knowledge from an exalted personality, from senior devotees, and from Prabhupada, in the form of his books, we are unable to accept it as it is. Verse after verse, it is saying that this world of dualities, every time there is a joy, sukha, it is followed with dukkha. We are seeing that, but we are unable to accept it, and we constantly go after that sukha. And ultimately, the fact is that it is packaged. Sukha is packaged with dukkha. That cannot change. That package is there, but in spite of that, we are unable to see that. But anyway, subsequently, by the mystic power of Narada Muni and Angiri Rishi, that spirit soul that had left that sun's body re-enters the sun's body, and for a brief period, that sun speaks, and he again confirms this understanding. What are you calling me son? I'm not your son anymore. I was never your son. I'm the spirit soul. What you thought your son is the body which is lying here, and that has not gone anywhere. The same body that you're calling your son is still lying here. What are you crying about? The spirit soul that I am, I was never your son to begin with, and now also I'm not your son. So you stop lamenting and go about your business. So hearing these words, the king and all the other queens, they all regained composure, and they went ahead and did the last rites for the son. And then the king was given a mantra to chant by Narada Muni. And he practices that mantra. It's the other day somebody was asking me, this Hare Krishna Mahamantra seems to be very long. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Would it not be nice if there was some smaller mantra like Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, small nice mantra? But actually the mantra that was given to Chitraketu, you can see in 16th chapter, it is several verses long. It is not just 16 syllables like how Shodashaka Namna Mythical Pashanashan, not like that kind of verse. Very long mantra. But he chanted that mantra, whatever was given to him, he chanted. In just 1 week of chanting that mantra. Just 1 week of chanting that mantra. He did not have any water. He was instructed that he should not have any food, only drink water. So he just drank water for 1 week, no other food, no juice, no apple juice, mango juice, nothing, no luza or any other such things. So he just had water for that 1 week and chanted this with great attention and care. And initially, just in a few days, he was transferred by the purity of his action to the planet of Vidyadharas. He was transferred to the planet of Vidyadharas. And then again, further in a few days, he came face to face with Anantadeva. And there's a beautiful description of Anantadeva, completely white, white in color, and wearing blue dress, and resplendent in glory. Beautiful, beautiful description of Anantadeva. He comes face to face with Anantadeva and offers beautiful prayers. Yoga Samsiddhim achieved. You would think the story is over. Where is the fall down? I have not related any fall down. It seems to be a success story. Just in 1 week he has attained success. But you see what happens afterwards. And this is a cautionary tale. It's very different incident from many other incidents. Because having seen the Lord, you would think that a person then is immune to any fall down. But actually here, he makes a mistake. It's not a fall down in the traditional sense. But let me tell you what that is very briefly. He is, after getting darshan of the Lord, he is blessed by the Lord that he will achieve perfection. Actually, he says, now you are perfect. But in the purport, Prabhupada is saying that this is an assurance given by the Lord of him achieving perfection. So it can be seen that coming face to face with the Lord does not necessarily mean 100% perfection has been achieved. But it is the Lord's plan of what will happen afterwards to that person. So Chitraketu then is blessed with a body where the senses do not deteriorate, and his senses are very youthful. He then goes back to the planet of Vidyadharas, and as the head of Vidyadharas, he engages in devotional service. Even though there are several angelic women in the planet of Vidyadharas, and he lives among them, but he never forgets his devotional service. Always perfect in engaging in discharging devotional service. Very, very fixed in his determination, faith, and discharging of devotional service. And with his mystic power, he was able to roam around from planet to planet in outer space without any inhibition. He had been given a special airplane that could travel to any of the planets. So he would travel like that. Once when he was traveling like that, he saw that there was Lord Shiva, who was sitting in an assembly, and Mother Parvati was seated on his lap, and Lord Shiva was tightly embracing Mother Parvati, and he was sitting like that. Not knowing the position of Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati, he made a jovial remark. Look at this Lord Shiva, whereas he is one of the greatest amongst all the ascetics, as such an ascetic person is so restrained in his behavior, and even if a person is married, usually they will embrace their wife in privacy, but this person, being the greatest ascetic, is having his wife seated on his lap and is embracing her in presence of all the great saints who are there in the assembly. And this seems very funny to me. Like that, he makes a jovial remark, not taking it very seriously, but casually he makes a remark. And Lord Shiva knows, Lord Shiva knew that Chitraketu was a great devotee of the Lord, wonderful, great Vaishnava, always rendering perfect devotional service. And he did not take this very seriously at all. He simply smiled. And all the people who were assembled in that place, they saw the reaction of Lord Shiva. And even though they were a little bit wondering about this comment, how this comment is being made, after all, it is their master, Lord Shiva, is being spoken about so casually. But they saw that Lord Shiva is not taking offense, so they all remained silent. Although internally they were feeling some anxiety, but they did not express it. They simply remained silent because of the respect, out of respect for Lord Shiva. But Mother Parvati, she could not take this. She could not take this affront. And immediately she cursed him that, look, your behavior is like a demoniac person, and you are chastising a great personality like Lord Shiva. You are fit to be a demon. And she cursed him to be born and take a demoniac body. So Chitraketu, after having come to the Lord face to face, was forced to accept a demoniac body. But then what happened to him? Did he fall down to the position where in a demoniac body now he starts eating flesh and attacking everybody and disrupting all the, what we see in Ramayana, right? How Vishwamitra takes Lord Ramachandra and Lakshmana to protect them from all the other asuras who are constantly disturbing their yagnas. So does Chitraketu become somebody like that, an asura like that? He becomes an asura, but not an asura like that. He becomes an asura by the name Vritrasura. And he remains a devotee. He remains a pure devotee, Vritrasura. And there's wonderful description of how Vritrasura attained, who was able to attain perfection, able to go back home, back to Godhead at the end of the Asura life in a battle between Indra and Vritrasura. So you can read that chapter as well. Very, very nice chapter. But this is an example of a person who, in spite of almost achieving perfection, almost there, he came to the Lord face to face. But then just because of a Vaishnava aparad, of a minor offense, actually great offense, but a minor deviation, just a small deviation. For a moment, he thought, oh, I can joke on this person. Not that he was offensive, but he was just joking. He was casually, Prajalpa, you can say, right? And in the purport, Prabhupada says that Mother Parvati was justified in punishing him. Why? Because she's a mother. A mother is always looking for the welfare of the children. And Parvati or Durga Devi, this material world, very, very exalted mother. Any person, any living entity, when we make a deviation from what is for our ultimate benefit, immediately she'll punish. And that chastisement is for our purification. All the disease and suffering and difficulties that we undergo, they are actually chastisement of Durga Devi. They are opportunity for us to increase our devotional service and attachment to the Lord, if provided we see it in that light. So this is a wonderful example of Chitraketu, who takes to this process and is unable to achieve Yoga Samsiddhim due to Charita Manasaha. So we'll see more of this in the next few classes as well. Arjuna is continuing his question. So I'll stop here and see if you have any comments or questions. Yes, Prabhu, Ankit, Prabhu, you're ready with your video on, ready to say Hare Krishna. But before that, can you say one line what you took away from today's class?
From today's class, Prabhuji, definitely we should have faith. We should not lose our faith, and we can, whatever, you have given examples of Chitraketu and Ajamila. So these are the two examples which we can definitely think of. Like, we should not lose our track. If we will lose our track, then definitely it will be a gone case, right? So
No, actually, the whole purpose of the class is that even if you lose your track, it is not a gone case. Actually, Arjuna is asking, is it a gone case? Like that he's asking. Answer will come subsequently. The examples of Chitraketu and Ajamila and Bharat Maharaj, they illustrate that even if you lose your path, the Lord does not give up on you. He gives you a chance to start where you started. Unlike material wealth, if you put $10,000 in the bank, what happens? It maybe grow to $12,000 or $20,000, but worth lesser. There is a diminution. And when you die, there is complete loss. When you're born the next year, next life, do you start with $20,000 in the bank? You don't start. So material activities, there is complete loss. But neha bikramana sri pratyavayona vidyate. In this endeavor, buddhi yoga, bhakti yoga, there is no loss.
gone case means like they have to be, come back again on this earth. Don't know which.
Yes,
But
from our point of view, you're
yeah.
right. I think I understand now what you're saying.
Yeah,
From
yeah,
our point of view, we should not take it casually.
correct.
Thinking that anyway, bank balance is there. I have taken 2 steps. Now let me take rest and start enjoying locally here in material world. Right? That is what you mean. Yes,
Yeah.
that is very good. So I said that. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Brijesh Prabhu. Yes. Yeah. And I had given an example of that. Do you remember the example? Every step counts. What is the example given? Do you remember? Again, nothing. No, that is that is a different example. The example that every step, when you make every step, okay, maybe I'll just say that. The example of eating food, every morsel that you take, you get direct experience of the Lord, devotion, direct experience, and vairagya, detachment. So you get these 3 things with every morsel. So it is not that it is an invisible balance that you cannot perceive. That I'm taken 3 steps, it is there in the bank, but I see no benefit. It is not like that. Tushti, Pushti, and third one, what is that? Forget. Shrutapaya. Yeah, hunger diminishes. So with every morsel of food that is taken, there is nourishment, satisfaction, and reduction of hunger. Correct? So that is compared to devotion, direct experience of the Lord, and detachment. So with every morsel, you can experience this. So it is not that it is an invisible balance in the bank. You can see it, and it is permanent. Both are there. Gyan Prabhu, did you join just now, or were you there from the beginning?
Hello? No, I was there.
You're there. So, yeah, would you like to share anything, what you took from this?
Yeah, the one line which I want to mention, and this one line also, one time Sadanand Prabhu also mentioned, like I think he said the one line from Gita. So I call it, do not fear. That's what he mentioned.
Do not fear, because, can you elaborate? Why do you say, how is it related to today's class?
Do not fear means, because in the morning class also today, there was a lot of discussion about the faith. And today's verse also talks about like taking shelter of the Lord. But these things happens when there's always some sort of there's a obstacle that comes, and that obstacle in the form of, this is where actually like taking the one step, and that taking one step, this is what I feel that the fear is the one thing, fear of something, like it's not just a fear of the fear, it is a very generic, which I want to say, the fear.
I got what you meant. So
Yeah.
do not fear is, yeah, very pertinent. Thank you. Anybody else like to share? Okay, if not, we'll stop here. Please come on your camera and chant after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Granthra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.